building your own intellectual property using open is not the same as building your own intellectual property using someone else's intellectual property, right? Mm-hmm. So building IP with IP is not the same mm-hmm. as building IP with open. You guys are a perfect example of building IP with open. You know, let me ask you this question here. We don't generally get technical here, but I am curious. So what you're doing is you're connecting to all your equipment, and are you generating tags, or are you doing like explicit reads through KEP server? Are you building? You're doing a combination of both,
right?
All right.
If I've got a Rockwell PLC and they'll give me all the tag structure, beautiful. I'm way ahead of the game at that point. Or I may need to.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Or I may need to build a data acquisition unit. We use a particular brand, and we have to generate a Modbus signal. So I mean, we're literally wired into the panel, and we're picking up signal A, signal B, signal C, and we create our own Modbus structure off of that. So I mean, we're all over the board. It just depends on what do I need to get first, right? You know, what is the machine capable of?
JSON structure for the IoT gateway. Are you using a custom structure that you guys have defined, or are you just using the predefined structure where I'm saying, here are all the tags I want you to package and publish these over the IoT gateway into the cloud? Or do you have a predefined where you're doing some data ops on the edge with that JSON?
It initially was everything. You know, we just took everything we could get, sent it out, and then sorted it from there. We are more structured now, but it also depends on the types of machines. So if I have one particular machine manufacturer, I know what I'm supposed to expect off of that. And I know there's a certain tag structure that I'll have off of that particular machine. And I'll focus in on that, which makes it go faster the next time I have that standardized approach come in my door. You know, we have with certain machine manufacturers out there in our world, we've already negotiated. You provide the machine, you provide the data gateway that we've already certified. It comes in the door, we put a wire on it, and we're off to the races, you know, within a day, because we kind of have it down to that point. For those, that's the easy ones. I'm, you know, getting more and more into the challenge of the machines that have been out there on a floor for 30 years. You know, nobody really remembers what that relay does anymore. So we're trying to figure things out now. And that's actually why I have an automation engineer on my team. I've got an automation engineer in an IT team to focus on that stuff. And that's what we're doing now. I mean, we're actually building some of that stuff.
Did you bring that automation engineer? Mm-hmm. So did you hire from within? Or did you hired that automation?
But
you brought him from
ironically,
outside.
He was working as a consultant within our factory before I did. I didn't know it at the time, but I hired him in. Yeah.
So he was already. And so does he or she act as the liaison to the controls groups on the plant floor or the maintenance departments or whoever's managing controls infrastructure? So they're the liaison, the direct liaison to the plant OT. Man, that's. No, we don't see that very often.
And we have different maturities at our organization as well. Some of our sites have a full automation team, and you know, for them it is more of a challenge for us to get in and kind of understand what they're trying to do. Others, they just operate the machines, right? They don't even know what the capabilities are, and so this automation engineer floats in between both levels, right? You know, for those that don't have it, we can go in and help them with it, or advise on, you know, maybe we need to go find a guy in the area that can come in and wire it up for us. For those that are the control engineers, it's great. We give them one example of it, and then they put it everywhere, and that's even better, because that just it's a multiplier effect at that point. You know, I've got one guy, and it goes from there. And then we found that the word spreads. We didn't know this, but apparently the control engineers guys talk to each other at the different sites. Who knew? But that word starts spreading, and then suddenly, you know, we're off to the races with a site we hadn't even had on the list yet. So it's really been interesting to watch.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Vaughn. Go ahead, Vaughn.
Yeah. So Tom, as a blue collar guy, as a plant floor guy, you know, with experience, you know, as an operator, everything like that. And you know, there's a Trelleborg facility right here near my home. So obviously, friends of mine work for Trelleborg. So for me, you know, all of the technical mumbo jumbo is just Greek to me, and it is to most other people that were in my position. So kind of what I want to know is, what have you guys seen from the initiatives that you've taken? What has been the response from like your operators, your plant floor people? How are you empowering them, and what has been their response, negative or positive? It's
been overwhelmingly positive, because what we're doing is we're taking burden off their shoulders. nobody likes paperwork, right? If I can give them an iPad and it's a single pane of glass on what's going on in their machine, and then they're suddenly just choosing what my downtime codes are, how many hours of their life have I saved, right? Just they're not chasing around that stupid piece of paper anymore. And that's our focus, right? I want a single pane of glass for my operators. And that's the other thing too, when we talk about your level 3, level 4, et cetera, going back full circle to something else we were talking about, I want that to be my operator interface to their ERP as well. I don't want them to have to go into more than one system. I want them just here. You do this. This is all you need. And it changes the way they see their job. Now it's no longer technical mumbo jumbo. Now it's my friend, because I'm able to point to my supervisors. This is what happened. This is why it happened. Maintenance needs to get over here and fix this. I've been telling you guys this for years, and now, this is all the data about it that you got. It's been really overwhelmingly positive.
It's interesting. I did a post today on LinkedIn, or I did on Twitter, and they put it on LinkedIn as well. And it was a manifestation of a conversation I had last week. And in the conversation I had with somebody, I said, building your own intellectual property using open is not the same as building your own intellectual property using someone else's intellectual property, right? So building IP with IP is not the same as building IP with open. You guys are a perfect example of building IP with open, right? Where the infrastructure itself is open, right? You're using open technology for the infrastructure, but then you're creating IP that is unique to Trelleborg, right? And so the question I have, and by the way, it's exactly the approach you're supposed to take. I mean, and the reason why is if what you're trying to do long term is be a digital company, and you want to connect your digital company to other digital companies, you want to connect your digital company to digital consumers through a single pane of glass. Well, you need to be digital based on open, not digital based on proprietary and intellectual property, right? Because that becomes the barrier between you and that infrastructure you're trying to get to, right? And you guys have done this. I mean, this is, Power Apps, Power BI and Power Apps is Microsoft intellectual property. However, it's connected to an open infrastructure that you own, and you can decouple BI and apps and plug something on top of it, and you lose nothing, right? And so the question is here, by the way, I actually love Power Apps. I'm a big fan of BI. I don't use BI that much. I use other tools, but I actually like Power BI. But I'm a big fan of Power Apps for CI/CD on the plant floor, right? I'm a big, Power Apps, as long as I have my data structures right and my information models right, then I can teach somebody to create their own application, right? Using Power Apps, right? So are you doing that? Is that a second piece? So in addition to you creating the single pane of glass, are you also unlocking potential on the plant floor through operators, engineers, mechanics, electricians using Power Apps or some other tool?
But it's on our board, right? Yeah, I mean, right now we're trying to get our heads around is just how do you govern the Power App stuff, right? Because I mean, we want to enable everybody to do what they want to do, but then I don't want to recreate access databases everywhere in my world. Like, if you remember, everybody used to do an access database and put their own macros on it and things like that as just, nightmarish to try to handle. What we want to make sure is we find a happy in between, and that's where we are right now. I mean, we've got ideas that would use that approach that you just talked about, Walker, but we're still not quite there yet. But I'm a big believer in that as well, because I'm never going to be able to be as much of an expert as that shop floor operator or maintenance person on what the job actually entails. I can provide them with a package of the basics of, here's what we understand, and then let them modify and change and kind of adjust to their local flavor of whatever it is that they need to do. That is where we see kind of that path right now.
We call it red and blue. So we say, and if you look at a unified namespace, we build the unified namespace red and blue. So the semantic hierarchy, whatever we pick, we use ISA 95 Part 2. I think you also said that you guys are ISA 95. We use ISA 95 Part 2 to organize the hierarchy of a unified namespace, enterprise site area line cell, right? And that's red. So the definition of the semantic hierarchy is red. That means it's enforced by the enterprise, it's enforced by the infrastructure. Then you have functions that are red. So like, let's say OEE is a very common one where we're calculating OEE the same way across the organization. So if I have an OEE namespace, that OEE namespace is red. But then we have blue. Blue is the ad hoc stuff. It's the stuff that is unique to one asset. Like I have a function that only applies to one asset in one site. It's one, maybe we acquired this business. A lot of times it's like offline operations where it's a one-off. We call that blue, where or CI/CD is blue. So it starts blue, and then the enterprise organization, the Tom Norbut and his team, are monitoring for all the new blue functions in the business. And then they're evaluating those blue functions and deciding whether or not they should be converted to red and applied to the whole business. We talk about this, there has to be a mechanism to manage. Otherwise, what you end up with is access databases, Excel spreadsheets, right? When we do the assessment, we're always asking clients, I want you to bring all your Excel spreadsheets, not the ones that somebody else built. I want the ones you built. You know why? Because you built that Excel spreadsheet can be traced. The antecedent of that spreadsheet is a problem you had. So I want to know what the problem is. The Excel spreadsheet is a window into what was the problem you were trying to solve. And if what we're trying to do is create a single pane of glass for solving our problems, I want to get back to that antecedent and solve that problem you solved with an Excel spreadsheet, but using our new digital infrastructure, right?